Hello, my name is Kevin McDonald. I'm a fish biologist with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service out of our Alpena Fuco, and today I'll be providing just a brief update on some of the Cisco monitoring work that we've been doing in Saginaw Bay in conjunction with the Cisco restoration project. So just a really brief background, I think everyone's well aware, but in 2015, the technical committee recommended to the Lake Committee to implement a stocking program for Cisco, starting in Saginaw Bay, as an attempt to restore Cisco populations. And really the goal here was to try to see if it was feasible to reestablish a self-sustaining population of Cisco in the main basin of Lake Huron. And so what was agreed upon was to stock 1 million fish, plus or minus 20% annually, starting in 2017 and continuing through 2027. So we conducted broodstock collections starting in 2016 through 2020 in support of the Cisco restoration project. And so the general plan there was to collect broodstock from the Lachino and Drummond Island areas, bring those fish into the hatchery, and then use those fish to stock Saginaw Bay. So just to let everyone know, we didn't do any collections in 2021, and we actually don't have any plans to do any further collections until 2023. But currently we do have 4 lines of broodstock that are housed at the Jordan River National Fish Hatchery. And just briefly, some of the preliminary genetics work does indicate that our donor stocks that we use to produce those broodstocks were genetically representative of like other spawning stocks in northern Lake Huron. So Cisco stocking events for 2021, we did both a fall and spring stocking event, and within each of those seasonal events, we also stocked fish both at an onshore and offshore site. And so here on this map, you can see our stocking location, which is just north of Point Lookout, between Tawas and Augray there. And so we have a shore stocking site right there, and then the offshore site is pretty much between the shore stocking site and the Charity Islands, as indicated on the map. So stocking events. So in spring, spring stocking occurred approximately in mid-June, across a couple weeks in mid-June. The mean length of fish released was 58 millimeters. The fall stocking happened in the middle of October, and those fish were slightly bigger with a mean length of about 90 millimeters. And so weather played a big part in how stocking kind of unfolded. So all of our spring 2021 stocking happened onshore just due to weather. And then kind of the flip side happened in the fall, where we ended up stocking almost 90% of the fish offshore. And that was just due to strong winds and just a combination of factors that made it difficult to made shore stocking not very appealing. So looking at stocking to date, this is the total numbers that we've had with our first fish going in 2018. And as you can see in 2021, things seem to have leveled off, where we're now putting out about 500,000 fish in both the spring and the fall. And so just as a reminder, all the fish that are being stocked are marked with OTC to identify them as hatchery fish. And in addition to that, we are able to mark them with a differential mark between spring release fishes and fall release fishes. And so spring release fish receive a single mark, and the larger fall release fish receive a double mark. And so the hope here is as we start to recapture fish, we'll be able to evaluate differences in survival between these two stocking strategies. So now I'm just going to step through the different surveys that we implemented in 2021, starting with our very first survey, which was our larval tows. And so we sampled Saginaw Bay once a week from March 30th all the way through about mid-May. And each week we did 40 depth stratified samples across a number of depth bends that you can see there. So each week we sampled 30 random sites as well as 10 fixed sites. The fixed sites were implemented to help us understand kind of how the seasonality of what the larval community and the zooplankton community was doing within the bay. Unfortunately, our samples are still being processed due to some COVID-19 and staffing issues. we're running a little behind, but can say that we captured Gorgonids across all the depth bends, kind of throughout the bay, which is typical for Saginaw Bay. However, we're gonna have to wait on genetics to confirm the presence or absence of Cisco on those larval samples. But we're anticipating to get those results hopefully soon, or at least submit them soon. But I will keep the committee abreast to what we find. So after larval tows, we then move into doing our nearshore beach seining. So we did beach seins at 4 different locations in the bay that you can see on the map there, with 2 on the east bank and 2 on the west bank. We were able to get to the west bank shores every week. The east bank, just given how much further it is away, they're a little harder to get to, a little harder to justify to get to. So we only were able to sample those once during our season. Similar to the larval samples, we're still waiting to submit those samples for genetic confirmation. Just telling a very small Gorgonids apart is incredibly difficult. So we're going to wait on those. But yeah, this year, just in general, our sampling was pretty low. We didn't see that many Gorgonids in our beach seins. And a lot of that has to do with just where we're able to access the lake, and then also just the persistent high water that we've had in the Great Lakes has made sampling especially hard. So in conjunction with our beach seins, we also implemented a nearshore trawl this year. And so the idea here was that we would pair our trawls with our beach seins within 24 hours of each other to see if we were missing any fish, or that we weren't capturing in our beach seins. Our trawls were limited to just our Tawas site in Saginaw Bay. However, and so then we did this weekly, and during each week, we would follow multiple depth contours at each site. So here on this map, you can see there's an example of those kind of contours that we'd follow. We would trawl in a shallow, medium, deep, and then across depth gradients in the medium depth bend there at each site. Unfortunately, our trawls, we didn't catch any Gorgonids in any of our trawls, not only at Saginaw Bay, but also in some of our other sites in Thunder Bay and Hammond Bay. So part of this was we did about half the effort that we were anticipating. Our trawl got hung up pretty consistently, so we had to cut our transects from a 10-minute transect to a 5-minute transect. So that might have something to do with it, but this first year of doing the trawls, we are going to do it again this coming year, and hopefully we'll have a little better luck. So moving on from our beach seine and trawl surveys, the next survey that we implemented kind of across the summer from the end of May through August is a juvenile small mesh gillnet survey. And so this survey is targeting kind of age 1 to age 3 whitefish and Cisco in juvenile habitats. And we focused our sampling on the western side of Saginaw Bay, kind of near the stocking site. And this actually resulted in our first hatchery Cisco being detected. We did see another fish up in Thunder Bay, but OTC analysis showed that that fish wasn't of hatchery origin, whereas the fish that we caught in Saginaw Bay was. So here you can see the first recaptured Cisco in Saginaw Bay. It was an immature male. We caught him in about 5 meters of water. Then using the OTC analysis, we confirmed it was a fall released fish. We still have this fish's hard structures, and we're gonna hopefully get to doing some aging. We're running a little behind, as I mentioned, but so we don't have a year class to assign yet, but hopefully that will be coming shortly. So the last survey that we did for the year was in the fall, and that's our spawning survey. And so this is the first year that we implemented this survey, because in previous years, we didn't expect the hatchery fish to have reached maturity. And so unfortunately, we were only able to get about 3 nights of sampling in between September 27th and November 11th. And that was just due to warm temps and bad weather, just combining with each other, keeping us off the water. But we were able to get out and sample 4 different sites. And those sites were kind of chosen based on historic spawning locations, as well as proximity to the stocking location, and also just substrate composition. But despite the low effort, we did find a couple or a handful of Cisco, as you can see on the map there, right off of Point Lookout. And so we did collect 3 fish, and all the fish were, yeah, as I mentioned, were caught off Point Lookout, just really close to the stocking location. They all were males, so 2 immature and one mature male. I suspect if we were able to sample later in the season, we'd probably start to see the females. And so, but this is really encouraging results, you know, given the first year of the survey and kind of not knowing where these fish were going to spawn. So really looking forward to this year getting out and doing this survey again. So just kind of real briefly to give a summary, you know, we haven't had any documented wild recruitment yet in any of our larval toads or beach seine samples. However, those samples do need to get genetically processed, but so I'll keep everyone informed with how that proceeds. But the good news is recaptures are starting to trickle in. We saw a fish in our juvenile survey, and we saw several fish in our spawning survey. So we hope that trend continues. And then something I didn't have time to get into was, you know, we are working with our partner agencies and other collaborators to evaluate any other sources of information, OTC fish, and that includes Michigan DNR and their Saginaw Bay community surveys and lake trout surveys, the USGS prey fish survey, and then also working with Brian Roth at MSU with his predator survey efforts. And so, yeah, and just keep everyone aware, we are planning on doing kind of the same surveys for 2022, and looking forward to getting on the water. And then real quickly, I just want to acknowledge all of our collaborators and everyone that's been a part of making this program happen, especially our hatchery staff. They put in a lot of work to make sure that we get fish into Saginaw Bay each year. And with that, I can take some questions. Thanks for your time.